And welcome everybody tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on August the 26th, 2020, when I think we're going to be making a little bit of weather history tonight. Category 4, Hurricane Laura with top winds of 145 miles an hour is about 120 or so miles southeast of Port Arthur, Texas, and just Joe Areo, a very impressive look on the satellite. Had that buzzsaw look earlier today. I think at this stage, it looks like the deepening that began yesterday that took us down from 990 millibars to 945 millibars might be leveling off a little bit. It's hard to tell sometimes when you look at the satellite and that eye is so well defined and still very tight and very much clear. Just going to have to wait for a little bit of confirmation from reconnaissance aircraft. But either way, at this point, we've got a major hurricane that's going to be making landfall at about 2 or 3 a.m.
And as I said yesterday, Joe, I can't even imagine being in the path of a storm like this. But I think it's even worse to have to experience this in under the cover of darkness, as so many will. Although I am also assuming that most of the folks who live along the immediate coastline of Texas and Louisiana have now evacuated. I certainly hope they've evacuated. In fact, did you see that one comment, that one statement? Unsurvivable.
Yeah, the Hurricane Center used the word unsurvivable storm surge, and I think they my guess is they decided to use that word because we just had low tide on the Gulf Coast, and this is going to be making landfall at high tide, so that's going to be a big problem.
It's going to be a terrible, terrible situation. And again, not any surprise to this forecaster who's been saying for the past few days, based upon what we saw with Katrina and Rita and other storms at this particular time of the year, the latter part of August, very warm Gulf waters. That the even though, and again, we've been saying how difficult it has been over the years for forecasters to try to pin down the intensity of the storm. But based upon what we've seen in the past, the fact is this thing has just fired up and jumped in terms of strength. I hope you're right, Joe, about the barometric pressure kind of slowing down or leveling off now, because it's been falling like a lead weight, and there's still an outside chance, just an outside chance, I think, for it to reach Cat 5 at 155 mile per hour between now and 2 or 3 in the morning when it does make landfall. But really, at this point in time, does it 10 miles an hour? Does that really make much of a difference? It is just a monster of a storm.
Correct, and the Air Force reconnaissance aircraft. We'll check out some of the reports as we roll through everything here with regards to Laura. We're going to give you a couple of radar perspectives and the on the national radar view, and I've got it centered down on the Gulf Coast. And the Gulf Coast states, you are beginning to see now the eye coming into radar range. There have been there was one band of squalls that is now well inland in Louisiana. The easternmost edge of it is just to the west of New Orleans, and then runs across central Louisiana and well north of Galveston, Houston. But we're starting to see the main core here beginning to the core of the storm. The actual core of the hurricane is still a ways offshore because you can see the edge of the eye there. But that's going to be coming in now in the next few hours. In fact, you're starting to see the lead band moving into the shores of southwest Louisiana. So it's only going to get worse. And here's I've got a couple of local radar views, Joe. We're going to start with the radar view out of Lake Charles, and there's the eye now, almost completely inside the range of the Lake Charles radar, and the bands of rain approaching Cameron, Louisiana, not quite to Port Arthur yet. It is going to go inland east of Galveston and Houston. So that, in terms of the big metro area, uh, that's a plus. But I'm thinking probably around Port Arthur looks like where this is going to wind up. Again, landfall at about 2 or 3 a.m. Looks like a fair time frame for landfall.
It's just horrible, Joe. And this thing is still going to be of hurricane intensity as it works its way almost straight north up along the border of Texas and Louisiana. It will then peter out, if I can say call it peter out, to just a tropical storm when it makes its way into Arkansas. And then as it's exiting Arkansas, it's going to encounter those very gusty and strong upper level westerly winds, which literally is going to turn the storm 90 degrees to the right and send it hurtling quickly to the east toward the mid Atlantic coast. And it'll take from Friday morning to Saturday evening to get to the mid Atlantic coastline. It will not be a tropical storm when it reaches the mid Atlantic coastline. I saw one Facebook posting last night from a politician, actually, who said it's going to be a tropical storm when it gets past or goes south of New York. It is not going to be a tropical storm. It is going to be the remnants of a tropical storm,
Or a
a lot of tropical
post-tropical.
moisture. But it's not going to be like a repeat of what we had earlier in this month with Isaias. I want to
No,
stress that.
I think the main concern for Saturday is going to be with regards to this is whether it triggers off some severe weather, and the Storm Prediction Center has has the area in a slight risk of severe weather, and also I kind of envision the remnant low, and you'll be able to follow it along on the radar, probably as a solid ball of convection or thunderstorms. And if somebody that gets underneath that is probably at risk for some heavy rain, and again, whether it triggers off some severe weather. We've got a front coming in. We're going to be in deep into tropical air mass on Saturday, so the atmosphere is going to be ripe for some heavy downpours and some heavy thunderstorms as that front approaches. And you throw in the remnant low of whatever Laura is, and it just makes it maybe makes it a little more dicey. But yeah, it's not going to be like Isaias was. I got the Houston vantage point for those of you who may be watching from the Houston area. You can see your radar is fairly clear around Houston, Galveston, and still not doing very much up around Beaumont, Port Arthur, but you're starting to see the western edge of Laura coming into range here on this particular radar view. One of the things, by the way, I did notice just as I switched over, and I think it's worth pointing out, I'm going to go back to that Lake Charles radar for a minute. And I did pick up just as I switched to the Houston, the radar to the west. If you look on the upper right, there are three tornado watch boxes that came up, and that's early in the game. So I think this is going to wind up being a producer of a lot of tornadoes once this is inland, particularly during the day tomorrow when the daytime heating gets underway. And Joe, even though it's moving inland, there's some kind of there's some kind of shortwave trough at work here that might slow the filling of pressure. I mean, you're going to have pressures that are going to take a while to fill from 945 up back into the 980s and 990s as it moves northward. So, that's going to add a little fuel, I think, to the possibility of severe weather in this area tomorrow. And overnight and tomorrow. I'm already seeing it now.
Absolutely. From the point of landfall this evening, oh, not this evening, but after midnight tonight, from the point of landfall to about 7 a.m. Central Time on Friday morning, you draw that line from the Gulf Coast all the way up along the Texas-Louisiana border, up through Arkansas to about northern Arkansas. Along that line, it's still going to be a very potent tropical cyclone. As you just mentioned, Joe, it's going to be taking its sweet time to diminish from hurricane intensity down to a tropical storm. Eventually, by Friday morning, it'll be a tropical depression. But that's what that is a good 24 or 30 hours worth of potential winds of 75 miles an hour or more, and that will take it again well inland. And anywhere that's anybody who's going to be near or along the path of that storm, you're going to be experiencing lots of rain. And also, especially if you're on the right hand quadrant or to the east of the storm track, a lot of wind probably too.
Joe Rayo's monitoring the chat board, folks. So if you want to have any questions or comments, do leave them. Put them on the chat board and join the conversation. And to do that, all you need to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel with your Gmail address, and you're on your way. And Joe, to what you say, what you just said. It's pretty unusual to have hurricane warnings all the way inland. I mean, they have them up almost to Shreveport, which is in the northwestern corner of the state,
Correct.
which goes to the point of how this thing is going to take its time weakening, and it's in general it's a low pressure map. Essentially, we have an ongoing tornado watch, which we'll address in a bit too. When we take a look at the severe weather, but I wanted to just show the extent of hurricane warnings. And the blue is that storm surge warning that is up for southeast Texas and much of the south coast of Louisiana, almost all the way to Boothville into the mouth of the Mississippi River. Tropical storm warnings on the eastern end of this, and of course you've got your hurricane warnings back to about Galveston, Houston, and then they tail off as you go south of there. By the way, Anthony Orr, who's one of our regulars, and I like to refer to Anthony as one of our resident statisticians, particularly a hurricane statistician. Of course, we've been setting records every time we get a named storm this year because it's been the earliest HIJKL storm and the ones before that. But this one sets an interesting record in that this will be right now we're tied for we're in a three-way tie because we've had 6 landfalling systems this hurricane season so far, and Laura will be the 7th, and it had about a window of 24 hours, but it'll be the 7th storm to make landfall, and that is the earliest that we've ever seen 7 landfalling tropical systems. And by the way, I think the record, if I remember off the top of my head, I think it was, I want to say 1934, there were 18 systems, I believe, that made landfall in the U.S. That record's got a long way to go. I think that's the number. I might be wrong, but just for some reason, the year and the number kind of stand out. But again, this is our first major of the season, and it will be another record breaker as it goes inland. And look at those tropical storm warnings up all the way into southwestern Arkansas and northeastern Texas. I forgot which storm it was. Was it last year or the year before that we had a storm that they had tropical storm warnings up for the first time in Atlanta, Georgia? Because it was all the way up to the north. I don't remember. I don't quite remember what storm that was, but here we have it. Here we have it again.
Inland, well inland, just like as you just mentioned, Joe, for Atlanta. Excuse me, for Atlanta, and now we've got this system that is taken all the way up to Shreveport. It's absolutely incredible. And I also want to point something out. I did some research this afternoon, trying to find a track. Of course, we have the projected path now for Laura, but trying to find something
which I have it here,
which is similar to what Laura is projected to go through. And the only one that I was able to find in 80 years of searching, the only one was one that stands out in both of our memories because we lived through it, and that was Camille. Camille actually came in from the Gulf of Mexico, went straight up, and then made that sharp right-hand turn and moved toward the mid-Atlantic coast. Now you're saying, well, that's no problem. Then we'll just look and see what Camille did, and we'll be able to forecast what Laura will do with us. Can't do that because in Camille's case, there was a big fair weather ridge of high pressure over the Great Lakes, extending from the Great Lakes to southern New England, which pretty well blocked all of the adverse rain and wind from Camille or Camille's remnants from reaching us here in the New York City metropolitan area. So we hardly had much of anything from Camille. We obviously cannot say that in the case of Laura because we don't have high pressure north of us. We in fact have that sharp cold front that we just alluded to for Saturday. And really, on Saturday, the nasty weather we're going to see, especially late Saturday and Saturday night, some of that moisture indeed is going to be due to the remnants of Laura, but the main thrust, the brunt of the front, so to speak, is going to be from that cold front. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center has us under the possibility for severe weather on Saturday. Not so much from Laura's passage to our south, but from the track of that cold front to our north and west. But again, I found it very interesting, Joe, that both Camille and Laura's paths, at least relative to the Gulf and the Mid Atlantic area, are pretty much almost the same, believe it or not.
Right, and also with Camille, as I mentioned earlier, about if you get underneath that bowl of convection that'll be around the remnant low. With Camille, the folks that got under that bowl of convection, some places up in the Central Appalachians, and their records that are still standing today, got 30 inches of rain in less than 24 hours time, and more people died in the flooding rains from Camille than actually did from the landfall of a Category 5 along the Mississippi Gulf Coast near Biloxi. And Camille actually, by the way, when it moved off the Virginia coast, regenerated into a tropical storm and almost
Right.
became a hurricane again while it was in the Atlantic before it ultimately went to the graveyard and got absorbed by low pressure to the north. But this is the track uh, of Laura's the forecast from the Hurricane Center, and of course, they carry it as a depression, and then they have it where you have that little white circle with the D in it. So that's a post-tropical system with the strength of a depression, and then they have it as an S south of Nova Scotia by 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And again, that's as a post-tropical low or an extratropical or non-tropical storm system, maybe bringing some wind and rain on Sunday, late Saturday night, Sunday, to the Canadian Maritime provinces as it races away up to the northeast. Would not be a shocker, but it's not going to be anything, obviously, like it is right now. I am going to bring up.
Before you guys start, Joe, I do want to address on the chat board. Frank Riccio was talking about Agnes in 1972, catastrophic flooding in Pennsylvania. Frank, there's a big difference between what Laura or Camille provide as opposed to Agnes. Agnes just literally just slowed down to a crawl and just sat and sat and sat for many days. I think it was over Pennsylvania, Joe, and
Yes.
that was the reason why that they had catastrophic flooding. Uh, it was due to the slow speed of Agnes as opposed to the more rapid speeds of Laura and Camille.
Agnes was also a bit of an oddball storm. And first of all, it was a June storm, for one thing, a June hurricane that came up the East Coast. It was just sort of an odd track, and then it became post-tropical and went westward into Pennsylvania. So that was thanks to an upper low. The rainfall amount, some of the rainfall records, all-time records for rainfall in Pennsylvania uh, are still standing and remained from Agnes. I'm going to. I got the observation map up, so I want to at least take a look at what kind of conditions we're seeing right now. There, I see a gust to 64 64 miles an hour from an oil platform that is south of Intercoastal City, Louisiana, east southeast at 54, gusting to 64. So that they're the. Oh, sorry about that. I accidentally clicked here, which I should not have done. Where did I lose my map? Nope, there it is. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so elsewhere at Galveston is 24, gusting to 32 from the north. The buoy out 42035 is north northeast at 31, gusting to 40. It's kind of you want to look at these wind speeds and the direction so you can actually get a sense for where the center is going to come ashore. I'm going to see if I could try to add a few more stations. And obviously, this is going to get you're going to see this get more active in terms of the wind in the coming hours, since the storm, still is the bulk of it is still well offshore. But let's see. Sabine Pass is northeast at 21, gusting to 29. Uh, Calcasieu, I think that's how you say it. Calcasieu Pass, east northeast at 22, gusting to 30. It's right on the coast on the Louisiana side. Um, Little station up to the northwest of there, Sabine, it's called, east northeast 17 to 28. There's not a whole lot out in the open waters with the observations. There's a buoy way out, and there's an oil platform way out, Joe, in the Gulf of Mexico. Their wind there is north at 38, gusting to 45. So we're going to be looking at the winds in southeast Texas to see who goes to the north or northwest, so we can get an idea um, where the center is going to come in landfall wise, and also we'll be watching the winds back in the Houston Galveston area to watching them turn to the northwest. So this way we know at least as far as the center going in, say in Galveston or just east of Galveston, that that indeed is not going to happen. So surface observations are the most important thing you can look at in a situation like this, because the reality is setting in now. So we're looking at everything happening pretty much in real time.
And a tweet from 16 minutes ago from Levi Cowan, the one who we are always using his maps from Tropical Tidbits. This from Levi 16 minutes ago. New Recon aircraft is now measuring surface winds of 150 to 155 mph in the northeastern eye wall of Hurricane Laura, very close now to Category 5 intensity.
Oh, Jesus. You know what? Let's see if I can bring up from tropicaltidbits.com, folks. If you can always look at it, you can do it yourself. Just go to Aircraft Recon, and you can actually, he posts the reconnaissance aircraft flights. There's one in progress here. But
And thank you to Shelly Man Studios for the tip off on that. He posted on the chat board about the 150 to 155, and went over to Levi Cohen's tweet, and sure enough, there it is.
here's they usually send they the planes usually come out of Biloxi, so they got well, at least they used to. This one has a relatively short trip to get to where the center is, but the white wind barbs are all 96 to 113, and the fuchsia color is 137 or higher. So that's right there in that. Let me just mark it off so everybody can see it. But right in here, this belt here, you got the two last colors on the scale on the bottom. That's these two down here. Make sure you guys can see that on the screen, and you can. That's where the plane just found the 113 to 137 in that lighter color, and in the color close to the eye wall, 137 plus. That's insane. Okay, so it may very well be right on the cusp of a Category 5 hurricane. Let's see if they put the scale up. If he's got the scale, the observation, we can get an idea maybe if the pressure's down to 900. Okay, so the pressure here is down to almost, it looks like just shy of 935 millibars.
Wow.
And you see the spike. The spike is the blue, is the surface wind, Joe. That's over up to 145 is at the top of the scale. It's just shy of that. So let's just eyeball it and say 140 knots. And the 10-meter wind is just shy of the 140 knot line. It's at about maybe 135 or so. So that really
Right.
just kind of puts it right at that Category 5. Uh,
I see no reason not to think that this isn't going to go to 5. It's still got several hours more than several hours to go. What's stopping it? Except for maybe an eye wall replacement cycle.
which
Have
is
we
going to
seen any
come
of that?
soon. I mean, it's going to come soon because this thing has been pretty much deepening straight through from it started 24 hours ago. At some point, the deepening is going to level off. Maybe that'll be the one. That'll be the one plus with this coming in at high tide. Uh, Whatever little break you can get, maybe at the point of landfall, the storm just beforehand will go through an eye wall replacement cycle, and you'll see the pressures come up a little bit, and the strongest winds maybe come down a little bit.
Right.
We can keep our fingers crossed that that's what will happen. All right.
Timothy Feldman on the chat board says check the recon data. New winds being reported. Well, we just talked about that. Winds being reported at 153 mile per hour. Pressure down to 937 millibar.
937. So yeah, because off the chart it's just shy of 935. So
All right. Thank you.
937.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. So all right, let's go to the let's go to the GFS model because uh, we're gonna look at how this is all going to impact after it goes inland because we do have a very busy northern jet stream here running across the northern part of the United States, and of course, as of this evening, it's the westerlies along the east coast are down to North Carolina, which was the reason why we had this absolutely delightful day today with low humidity and sunshine and a nice cool breeze, a busy, kind of a busy wind today here, Joe, and temperatures that didn't get out of the 70s. But now this is going to be pulling out. And of course, you can follow Laura, which is this mess here. This is what represents Laura, this the wrapped up feature as it moves northward, and then, as Joe pointed out, it turns northeastward. Now, when it and eastward, and when it makes that sharp right turn, we have a shortwave trough that's dropping down from Canada right here, and that is going to essentially pick this thing up. And as that shortwave travels east, this Laura will shoot to the east, and there'll probably be some identifiable feature. It kind of gets lost a little bit in the at this level of the atmosphere, the 18,000 foot level. But Saturday morning, there's still a kink right there. That's what represents Laura, and then you have this strengthening shortwave to the north, all of that swinging eastward. So this whole trough, when it comes east, it's going to set up the possibility for some severe weather. And by the way, let's also address what happens before that because we actually have severe weather risk here, Joe, for the next 3 days, tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday.
Well, yeah, let's. I'm glad you brought that up.
So
We've been
let's talk.
so concerned about Laura, and yet tomorrow it's going to be fairly formidable for us here. The same front that came on by yesterday, pushed to our south, allowed the dry air to come in today to make such a nice weather pattern for us today. That front is coming back north. I suspect, Joe. Now, we here at the house we have all the windows open. We let nature's air conditioning system come in today. I suspect that we'll be able to get through tonight. It'll still be a comfortable sleeping night, but sometime around daybreak.
Yes.
Day, by the way, is breaking a lot later now than it was about a month ago. But around 6 or 7 o'clock, the warm front, the old front, is going to be in our vicinity again. We may get a couple of showers, maybe even a rumble or two of thunder. Then that goes to the north of us for a while tomorrow. We go back into the humid, sticky air again. And then it looks like that front is going to drop back south again. And this will come during the time of maximum diurnal heating tomorrow afternoon and evening, which sets the stage again, as was the case yesterday, for another round of slight to possibly enhanced severe weather. And this time they've got, I don't even remember. You just had it on the screen here a few moments ago.
Right.
That's about the biggest area of enhanced severe that
Right.
I've seen in this part of the country.
I just put it back up. Yeah, it covers the northern half of New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, the lower and middle and almost the upper Hudson Valley, Connecticut, Rhode Island, much of Massachusetts, all and Long Island, all in that enhanced zone. Now we had an enhanced zone yesterday in New Jersey that wound up being in between the two lines of storms that went through, and those storms really didn't turn out to be anything worth noticing. One thing I failed to mention yesterday, and maybe this was the reason why we didn't get much in the way of thunderstorm activity last night. We did get a few cells, but we didn't get any kind of widespread outbreak. Uh, when Tuesday morning, there was a line of storms that was moving across upstate New York and moving southeastward overnight and into Tuesday morning. And after about 8 or 9 o'clock, after about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, those storms have completely dissipated. But I did notice there must have been some kind of little trough or dry line that came through, because for a brief moment yesterday morning here, it felt as if the dew points actually dropped by a couple of degrees. And then they came back up again later in the morning and in the afternoon, ahead of the main front. I just wonder whether that first line, sort of took the juice out of the air. Now, tomorrow, I agree with you. I think there might be a shower or storm tomorrow morning with the warm front that kind of sets up northeastern Pennsylvania down to about northern New Jersey, New York City, and points north and east. It'll be brief, and then it'll immediately transition into a really steamy air mass, and then we've got the front coming down, back down. So yeah, I think we stand a better shot to see a bit more in the way of thunderstorm activity tomorrow. And the other thing to point out, because of the dew points being as high as they are and the air being as tropical as it is, the Storm Prediction Center also has a 5% chance of tornadoes in that
Right.
enhanced area. So that's a pretty high number for this part of the Northeast and Northern Mid Atlantic states. And 5% means, by the way, the probability of a tornado within 25 miles of a point. Okay, so pick any point in that 5% in that hatch area, and what they're saying is that there's a 5% chance that you could see a tornado. It's a low number, 5%. The numerical value, it sounds low, but it's not as low as it sounds. Let's just put it that way. And of course, you can also see a 5% chance of tornadoes in the area that is being impacted by Laura east of the track of the center, in virtually the whole state of Louisiana and almost the whole state of Arkansas and even westernmost Mississippi. So this is for tomorrow. The severe weather risk continues on Friday. Now, Friday, Joe, the warm front that goes through and comes back down as a cold front and then gets ready to come back up as a warm front, sets up a little further south on Friday. So the severe weather risk is most of New Jersey except the extreme north. Marginal risk, you see where the slight risk is, from Ohio back over through northern Indiana, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, southern Michigan, eastern and much of Iowa. But when I looked at the temperatures, the high temperatures that were being forecast, the areas in marginal risk are all going to get to upper 80s to low 90s. But you just go north of that marginal risk line, those temperatures really cool off. And where the thunderstorms actually cut off completely in central and eastern Connecticut, and up through Massachusetts and on up into New England, much of this area is not going to get out of the 70s. So there's actually some cool, dry air just to the northeast. So it's almost going to be like a wall where you transition over into the steamier air. And then on Saturday, I don't remember the last time we had risk being shown 3 days in a row. On Saturday, which is still, by the way, in the SPC's day 4 time frame.
Right.
Tomorrow it'll be in day 3, but we always say that when you see it in the day 4 to 8 time frame, if they put risk in there, it means pay attention. We have a 15% risk of severe weather northernmost Virginia into central New England. So that includes Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Albany, Hartford, Providence, and just about touches Boston. So all the major points in the Northeast are underneath this risk area for Saturday, and this is the day where we've got the front, and we're going to have Laura in some form moving along relatively close by. I guess that's the best
And
way to
and
put it.
they said in the discussion for Saturday that come tomorrow it'll be in the day 3 category, and they'll be able to play with this a little bit more, or picture it a little bit better, depict it a little bit better. And in terms of what Laura's remnants may do, they may actually be concerned about possible tornadic activity in places that are either just at or maybe below the 15% line that's set up for today. Trying to consider perhaps, as you mentioned, that ball of energy, so to speak, associated with the remnants of Laura, that might lead to a better chance of tornadic activity or a better chance of enhanced convection. And again, obviously, as you get closer to the event, and we don't really know, we're only guessing right now what Laura is going to be like, on Friday and beyond. Once it moves inland tonight and tomorrow, we'll have a much better handle and maybe be able to draw that area of severity for day 3, Saturday, a bit better, and certainly we'll have a much better handle on it for day 2 on Friday, and of course, I would hope the actual day of the expected event on Saturday. And do you agree with this, Joe? That I think that Saturday, the time frame that we would have to watch for possible severe weather here would probably be more like later Saturday and Saturday evening,
Yes,
as opposed to, let's say, first thing in the morning on Saturday.
I agree. I totally agree. Here's your warm front tomorrow morning, which the GFS actually spits out a few showers. And those showers and storms by 8 a.m. on Thursday are quite numerous in upstate New York, which is where you would expect it because at this point the warm front has pretty much gone by. Meanwhile, on the lower left, you see the storm Laura coming inland. Again, figure around 2 or 3 a.m. Moves up along the Texas-Louisiana border, still showing a 989 pressure in northwest Louisiana with isobars wrapped around. I'm going to pull up a sounding. I'm just kind of curious as to what kind of winds. It's probably. I'm just for laughs. I want to see this. I mean, like 20 to 15, 20 knots down at the surface. And then just above the surface, Joe, at 900 millibars, 60 knot winds from the east. I pulled up this point here at 33.1 and 93.6. I just sort of randomly picked a spot near where the low center is. And of course, you see in the afternoon that warm front that goes by in the morning only makes it so far north before it starts dropping back southward. So there'll be some thunderstorms, and here the GFS at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It shows quite a few storms. The idea that there could be a few storms or some kind of line of storms the further north you go. And then by the time we get to 8 o'clock, they start to fizzle a little bit on the model. But I would just caution, we've had it a number of times this month where the models, both the global, but particularly the short-term models, have been bad with regards to getting the extent of the thunderstorms correct. So I think we're just going to respect the risk, the path of least resistance, and the path of that will get you in trouble to the least is to basically just kind of respect what SPC is doing with the severe weather risk for tomorrow with the enhanced. Now, your Laura is making that sharp right turn, and of course, now we see this frontal system to the north that's sweeping eastward. Some storms around Friday evening, Joe, scattered around. Looks like they might be a bit more numerous back in Pennsylvania and Virginia and West Virginia. And then, of course, you've got a more important cold front that's going to be coming in on Saturday. And at this point, of course, Laura on the GFS, you can't really find it, but it's probably somewhere in central Virginia getting ready to move offshore. And then you get the showers and storms Saturday afternoon, later Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. And the payoff that comes behind it is going to be nice because we'll actually have at least 2 dry days, Sunday and Monday. Sunday looks like a nice breezy day, and Monday looks like an exceptional day. I looked at the temperatures for next Monday, Joe. Not much above nobody gets out of the 70s, and a lot of spots are only going to top out in the low to mid 70s. We should only hope and pray that that's correct.
Right, right, absolutely. And Joe, we have. I want to just bring up the people who have hit super chats so far, and that's Nick Cortez, who hit it twice today.
Oh, twice is nice. Thanks, Nick.
And T Snowy 23, and we also have Horse Guy, who has also came up with a question in terms of the track of Laura. Is a west shift still possible for Laura around the Houston area? And to my answer to that is that here, if you know the Houston area, Interstate 45, I think if you go anywhere to the east of Interstate 45, you'll be running into some significant weather in terms of showery and possibly heavy rains and maybe some convection. I think it's going to be a very sharp cutoff, Joe. I think to the west of I-45, there may not be much, if any,
Anything.
significant rainfall. It's going to be a very sharp cutoff. So if you're heading, let's say, toward to the east of 45, toward, let's say, Beaumont, for example, you're going to run into probably some trouble. If you go to the west, I think you will be out of harm's way for the most part. But the Houston area is literally sitting right on the cusp, so to speak. Doesn't look like a repeat of Harvey, but well, since you've gone through Harvey, anything like this, remotely like this, you can be, you get concerned. Let's put it that way.
I'm going for horse guy. You said it was right.
Right, horse
Okay,
guy.
so I brought up the Houston radar just to answer your question about something moving more to the west. If we follow the eye along, and I'm just gonna do a simple take the eye and just the motion for the last couple of hours that you see on the radar, and since it's going to want to make a jog more to the right, but let's assume that it just moves on a straight line path from where it is now. I'm it basically takes it if we kept it on a straight line path, it winds up west of Port Arthur and Orange. Now, in order for it at this stage, in order for it to uh, go into Galveston and Houston, it has to actually turn and start moving west northwest at about maybe 295 or 295 degrees versus the 325 that it's moving now, 325 almost 330. So that's a significant shift to the left that it would have to do, and every hour that passes, that angle is going to get wider. So my feeling is that it should not do that. I think if anything, it's going to start bending more toward 330 and 340 degrees, so that you'll have something like this, and then eventually it just kind of starts to go more to the north once it gets onto the coast. So I'm thinking with regards to a direct hit for downtown Houston and Galveston, it's that I don't think is going to happen. The eye is going to pass well to the east of there, so it'll be a matter of how much are you going to see on the western side. That's always a tough question. Usually, the western side is smaller from the standpoint of rain and wind. Of course, Joe, you know as well as I do, as they start to gain latitude, the rain shifts a bit to the west side and the more to the west side, and the east side gets into the wind issue and the severe weather issue. That's probably going to happen after it goes inland.
Yeah, and frictional drag, all of that tropical moisture as it's getting wrung out like a giant sponge or wash rag over the land after it makes landfall tonight. That's probably where the western part of the rain shield will expand a bit. But again, by that time, you're already the eye of the storm is already past the latitude of Houston, and so folks who are actually to the north and west of Houston may get into some of that significant or showery rains. But I think for the city proper, for Houston proper, I don't think that there's going to be too much of a problem. So he said. Certainly, again, not anything like what we had with Harvey, which I know every time the mere mention of a hurricane in the Houston area, people immediately think about that. But I think that for the most part, in terms of the tropical rains and the heavy duty winds, I think Houston is going to dodge, for the most part, a big bullet this time around.
Right, and this is a good time to remind everybody that as far as uh, current information, it is 7:50. It is 7:44 Eastern time, so it's 6:44 Central time when we're doing this live. If you're watching this on the replay, obviously this is going to be dated, so you want to make sure you go to your local National Weather Service forecast office for the latest weather information, and you can get that by going to weather.gov. Also, if you're watching in those areas, make sure you go to your local officials with regards to what you need to do. Obviously, at this point, areas that needed to be evacuated should have been evacuated, but you want to make sure if you're making decisions, check with your local authorities because they can answer questions that we can't because you live there and we don't. And we're not familiar. So weather.gov and nhc.noaa.gov for the National Hurricane Center. I just pulled up, went back to the recon because they're still there, and they're probably going to make another pass very soon into the center. But that prior pass, in case you're tuning in, you've tuned in late, uh, just a shade above 935 millibars, 937 millibars. The pressure has dropped another dozen or so millibars from where it was a few hours ago. And we have a flight level wind that was up over 140 knots. We have a 10-meter wind at about 135 knots. So that really kind of puts it right at the cusp of a Category 5 hurricane. Joe, used to be, if you recall, and I think you do, there was a time when, as far as the categories were concerned, you had to fulfill both the pressure and the wind as criteria. You needed a pressure under 925 and a wind in excess of 155, but they got rid of the pressure criteria and just went straight with the wind criteria. Because in the old criteria, a 935 pressure is a Category 4. But the wind may say otherwise. So we're just going to wait for the Hurricane Center to tell us what it is, what they say it is in the new advisory, which will be out in about 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes.
Sounds like the change that they made for blizzard conditions, where they always used to have it had to meet the certain criteria for the temperature to be like below 20 degrees, and then they just threw their arms up and said, "All right, we'll go with blizzard for visibility and in terms of rate or intensity of snow, and you can have a blizzard if it's like 30 or 28 degrees, and we don't have to wait until it gets down to 20."
Right, and a blizzard is a visibility question, and it's not a snow amount question. It just
Right.
got the word just got kind of equated with heavy snowfall somewhere along the way of a foot or more. I think that's a northeast. I think that's a northeast production because in the Midwest they kind of understand what the blizzard means. It doesn't necessarily mean a foot of snow. It's
Right.
visibilities of a quarter of a mile or less.
Right. Johnny
So
Quest, by the way, our dear friend with the 120 inches of rain so far this year wants to know. And first of all, thank you, Johnny Quest, for hitting super chats. He wants to know: will the mountains where he lives enhance the rainfall, Joe?
yeah, I think they will. In fact, let's look at WPC. I've got their forecast. I did something with it. I'll have to find. There it is. Let's bring up WPC's rainfall forecast. Now, again, I'm not too familiar with the topography here, but you'll notice that what they did, they've got a bulge of heavy precip in the state of West Virginia of the reds where you start with the 2 to 3 inches or more. So let's call this a generous 3 to 6 inches of rainfall in over the state of West Virginia. Now, some of that is going to come with thunderstorms tomorrow and on Friday, but the bulk of this is going to be for later Friday night and on Saturday. So I would say, yeah, the possibility of it being enhanced is certainly there, and I think that's why you see WPC with the purple areas down from an inch and a half or more, extending all the way down into the Western Carolina mountains. By the way, Joe, with respect to what WPC is doing with our chance for thunderstorms the next couple of days, and of course that makes the trying to forecast rainfall totals a bit difficult, but they are quite bullish actually across upstate New York and in central and northern New England. But the southern edge of an inch and a half goes down into Delaware. So they're actually showing up to 2 or 3 inches from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England for tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. And I would imagine if we can mix a thunderstorm or two tomorrow and again on Friday, and then have some widespread activity on Saturday, that we should be able to do that. And there are a lot of areas up here that are still very dry or even under a moderate drought. So this might go a long way to alleviate that.
And Joe, Tim Beltman has just tipped us off here that the new advisory, the 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern time advisory for Laura is out, and she has now gone up to 150 mile per
150. So
mile
it's still a Cat 4. So needs to get that pressure down maybe another 10 millibars before to get to that Cat 5 number. Look, it's a major hurricane. That's the bottom line. You're we're quibbling about a technical issue here with regards to the wind, but we can't emphasize enough. This is a Category 5 hurricane, which is going to be devastating for the areas that gets the full impact of the landfall. And again, a particularly concerning thing for the coastal areas is the fact that it is going to be making landfall at the time of high tide.
That's me. I say it's a perfect storm scenario. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, you go, yeah. The only thing that's missing, I don't even know what phase of the moon are we in.
moon will be full on September 2nd. That'll be early next week.
Okay, so that at least is the one small positive from that standpoint. So we're in the last quarter right now, correct?
First quarter.
I'm sorry, first quarter.
Right.
So we're in a lower cycle.
We're in what they call we're not in a spring tide phase. We're in a neap tide phase, which is midway between the astronomically high tides that you get at either a full moon or a new moon. So yeah, the other thing, if you want to look at another positive here, is that the moon, these moons are now the full moons are approaching apogee. In other words, they're closing in on the furthest point in the moon's orbit from relative to the Earth. If we had a situation like in April where we had a full moon and it
right.
was also near the closest point, the perigee point, then the tides would be roughly 20 or 30% higher than your normal spring tide situation. We're groping now, folks. We're looking for some bright spots in this,
Yeah.
the positives here, but
It's like
they,
it's like trying to find the edible spot of a moldy loaf of bread.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly,
that
exactly.
really is what it is. The other thing I want to mention about the tide in the Gulf, having lived on the Gulf Coast, both on the Texas coast and in southeast Louisiana, uh, tides there are somewhat. They're not quite the way they don't they. The water is there's a lot of areas there in the Gulf. The water is very shallow, so the tides kind of behave in a strange way, as opposed to what you might be used to, say, up in the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic states and so on. But also the angle of approach here is very important, and coming in from the southeast and crossing the entire length of the Gulf of Mexico, that has just basically pushed all the water into that corner of Texas and Louisiana. So having that occurring and it coming in at high tide is just not a good. It's just not a good scenario at all.
It is. It is not. I yeah, with this latest advisory, what more can we possibly say about this? I mean, there's nothing more that we could say except that I hope that everybody who lives along the Gulf Coast has done their thing, has made their preparations as best they can. There's not much more now. All we have to do now is just sit and wait and see what happens when landfall occurs later tonight, and then we will see what we are going to have to go through in our own way for thunderstorms tomorrow, Friday, and with the remnants of the tropical cyclone passing by on Saturday.
Yeah,
Pretty active next several days coming up.
yeah. I'm just reading through I'm just skimming through the advisory right now. 28.4, 92.9 west. So this position is 120 miles south southeast of Port Arthur. So now they're going back to what Horse Guy was asking about Houston. The motion they're carrying now is north northwest or 330 degrees. So it's actually that's even more to the right. So this reinforces what we said with regards to the Houston Galveston area. It's not going to direct hit there. We're Port Arthur, I think Beaumont, Port Arthur, and areas to the east on the Louisiana side of the border of the Texas border. That's good. That looks like the prime spot for landfall here, and they're carrying a pressure on the advisory, Joe. They carried a pressure of 940 millibars to 7.76 inches. So
Wow.
120 miles due south of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and 120 miles south southeast of Port Arthur, Texas. So think somewhere in between those 2 points is where we're going to see this come ashore.
It's incredible. What was that other record, Joe, that you were mentioning about New Jersey? experiencing landfalling tropical systems in a single
No, that was no, 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 no,
season?
not New Jersey. This hurricane season, what I mentioned earlier, which was this is going to be the seventh landfalling system
I know
this
what you're saying
season.
now, but I mean, no, but I'm talking about. Didn't you mention, or did somebody mention that this is the first time that they've ever had two tropical systems affect New Jersey or landfall in New Jersey during a particular season? And I mean, with this one, this if you still want to call it a tropical cyclone or the remnants thereof, it looks like it
Well,
could very well clip
it,
South Jersey on
it could
Saturday.
very well, and of course, Kyle formed just east of Atlantic City, so you can throw that one into the mix.
Yeah,
Geez, it looks like this is all, South Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania have been the target zone for thunderstorms this summer. They've gotten uh, so many wicked thunderstorms this season. So now let's throw in the mix all these tropical systems. That seems to be the target zone this year. Every year in the summertime in this area, there's always one spot that seems to get the thunderstorms all the time, and everybody else is just kind of, you get them here, you get them there, but there's always good one spot. Sometimes it's Long Island, sometimes it's up by you, Joe, up in the Hudson Valley. This year it's been southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. Almost every time that area has gotten hit really hard, and now of course we have all these tropical systems intersecting the southern part of the Garden State. Just been a strange year, this 2020 so far, and it'll probably get stranger before the year is out. We still got 4 months to go.
and a couple of things I just want to take note of. I think William Huber was asking about where Agnes made landfall. I did look it up. Agnes made landfall on June 19th, 1972, near Cape San Bias, Florida, with winds of 75 miles per hour. And Steve LaPont just posted on the chat board, Joe, incredible wind velocities of 180 to 205 mile per hour just above the ground were observed by a dropsonde in the northeastern eye wall of Laura, helping to confirm the winds the plane observed.
That's
Ouch.
insane. That's just crazy stuff. My God, you don't see storms like this too often, thankfully. Yeah, although it does seem like in the last 15 or so years, these Category 5 storms have been far more numerous than they were. They certainly were far more numerous than they were in the prior 30 years. You went from Camille, I think, almost to 1985 before you had another Cat 5.
Right.
I want to say Gilbert was in 85. For some reason
And I
that.
remember Neil
Oh no, I'm
Flagstaff.
sorry, I forgot. Hurricane Allen in 1980 was a big Category 5 in the Gulf, but it
Yeah.
it it, it weakened it weakened quite a bit as it made landfall. But still, you went at least 11 years without seeing a Category 5 hurricane.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have an active year this year. So
Yep.
I don't know what else you want to add, Joe. Other than that, I think maybe we just call
Uh,
it a night and
I agree.
come back tomorrow.
I think it's time to go. Thanks everybody for being here. Once again, for those of you who hit super chat tonight, T Snowy, Nick Cortez twice, Horse Guy, Johnny Quest. I think I covered everybody. Let's see.
And horse guy. Yeah, you mentioned horse
I
guy,
did
right?
mention Horse Guy. Thank you so much. Joe and I, of course, do appreciate it. There's additional weather coverage, by the way, going on my weather platform on Patreon. And you can find that by going to patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. I got links up all over the place. There's a link even on the descriptor to this live stream if you're interested. It's a subscription site, and it's just $2 a month. And we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be on 7 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow for the aftermath. And of course, we'll be looking at our own severe weather issues for the next 3 days.